Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion podcast, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each episode spotlights and interviews one transformational leader, their stories, and their advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. If you are a visionary seeking to uplevel your leadership skills, then this is the podcast for you. I invite you today to spread inspiration like a contagion. Welcome to the Inspiration Contagion movement. Welcome to episode 45 of the Inspiration Contagion podcast. This week's episode is also being recorded for YouTube, so if you'd prefer to watch, be sure to check out the show notes for a link to that video. This week's guest is Dee Woolridge. Dee is a motivational speaker, author, success coach, Texas Externship Location Director of the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy, and founder of Heart-Centered Institute, LLC, where teaching is focused on new thought, spirituality, personal growth, transformation, and positive change. With that, welcome, Dee.
Yay!
I love it. I love it. I got a little tongue-tied there. Like, that's a really big bio. So why don't you start by just telling our audience a little bit more about yourself and your backgrounds?
Well, you said a mouthful, Coach Holly. I've been at this sacred work for over 20 years now. Let's see, my daughter's 30, so I started when she was 4. I spent 30 years in the military, so you may be saying, how did you do, this sacred work with hypnosis and meditation and all the things that I do? I started them because she was born at 24 weeks. She weighed 1 pound. So I was looking for a way to help her. But in order to help her, I had to help myself. I had to get my mindset right. She spent four months in the hospital. At that time, I had a husband who just disengaged because he couldn't take, all the things that were going on. So I had to toughen up, but it wasn't like physically toughen up because I was already physically fit being young in the military. It was the mental mindset and clarity that I had to get for the road ahead with a daughter who was that sick. She was very sick. And then, at 9, she was diagnosed with autism. So that brought another element of, okay, what do I need to do now? And because my life changed from the path that I thought I was going to have, I had to change my mindset and get ready for that. So it was just a series of read this book, take this class, engage with this mentor and teacher. So as I learned, I began to teach other people that were struggling through some of the same challenges or challenges that brought about the same result. It's just like, it doesn't matter what your challenge is a lot of time. The result is you don't feel good, you're stuck, you're depressed, you're sad. So the techniques that I learned, I just started to teach them. So it was a natural progression into, I'm going to start getting paid for this for what I learned. And I know you understand that too, because your background, Coach Holly, is the work that you've been doing with businesses, and then you've probably were giving information away for free and just learned how to say, hey, this is sacred work I'm doing. People do need what I have to offer. And you turned it into an accidental business. Like, I would say that I'm an accidental coach, and you may be the same way.
Yeah, well, first of all, I kind of wanted to go back to the fact that this external work, it's so interesting. So when we have this external look in the world, so like you said, you were physically fit, they looked great, the appearance was great, you had a husband, and probably from the exterior, it looked like life was okay. So it's really interesting. A lot of times we feel the most lonely when everything looks great on the outside, but there's really a lot of inner work that's required. And I agree, it's like such a long ongoing progression. Like you're never done with the inner work. There's always a new layer to peel back. And I love that story of how it was accidental and it wasn't really your plan, but you listened, you tuned in, and you made it happen. And I think that's the majority of people that decide to start their own business. They basically uncover what their superhero powers are and what they're
Yes.
great at. And it's kind of like a
Yes.
hobby or a passion. And it's interesting for me, it was health coaching and helping people with their goals and holding them accountable and business advice and just like a lot of things in these different areas.
Yes.
And couple that with getting laid off, and I was like, okay, we have to pivot, we have to figure something else out here.
Yeah.
So that's the magic of entrepreneurship. So
Yeah, you've acquired these skills along the way, right? And you were using these skills to help other people's business. And then you figured, if I did this for someone else, why can't I do it for myself?
yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I was going to ask you is, since we're on the Inspiration Contagion podcast, what makes you such an inspirational leader, or what would you say is your secret sauce?
The secret sauce, I believe, is allowing people space to figure out their own answer. As a coach, of course, I'm going to give you some tools and some techniques that you can use, but you have to figure out what you're going to use them on yourself. So, my secret sauce is repeating back to people what they say. I know it sounds simple, but they go, I have a headache. And I go, you have a headache? You know how this goes as a coach. And then you start to figure out, what are you saying to yourself? Actually, the other day, I hit my head, on the cabinet door, and then couple of the next day, I scraped my finger in the laundry room, and then I said out loud, I said, "Ouch! I keep hurting myself." And then I go, "Oh my gosh!" So I know that I needed to let go of some things that I was stressed about all the time, that I was trying to figure out, and all I had to do was just say, "No, I don't want to do that anymore." So listening and finding my own answer by just what I said. It's like, man, I keep hurting myself. Wow. And that's the epiphany. So um, that is what I do. Create space for people. Instead of giving them the answer, I help them figure out what the problem is themselves and go within to figure out what the answer to that problem is, because we all have that ability.
Yeah. And today, I think more than ever, it's so important for people to feel heard. And it is really powerful. And I know exactly what you're talking about, where you're
Yeah.
repeating back what they just said. And when
Yeah.
you repeat it, there's like this look on their face of, wow, oh, somebody finally heard me. Or, oh, the light bulbs have gone off, and now they've heard it exactly what they just said in their own words, but from someone else. And because it's validated them, it opens something else up
Mhm.
inside of them. And they're like, oh my goodness. And it really just holds the space and allows them to see possibility or opportunities, or like you just said, an area of growth that they haven't shown light on. And they're like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I need to slow down for a little bit because I keep hurting myself. And it was really interesting how you shared, even when you were saying, you kept hurting yourself. Sometimes I also noticed that even as coaches, we need our own coach, because we're good
Yeah.
sometimes at coaching ourselves. But I don't know about you, Dee, but I find that I really need my coach to be like, Holly,
Oh, yes.
big blind spot.
Exactly. I do. And
Yeah.
I have several coaches for different things that coach me in different areas of my life. And because I'm a coach, I know, I know that I do have blind spots. So if I had gone to the coach and said, I keep hurting myself, she would have said, you keep hurting yourself. That's interesting. So I caught it myself. I was working with, I hope you don't mind me sharing this whole
No,
story.
go for it.
I was working with a client who came to me to swallow pills. She couldn't swallow pills. and she found me as a hypnotherapist and said, hey, I need to learn how to swallow pills. I haven't been able to do it like forever. I used, I remember swallowing when I was like 9, and then I couldn't do it after that. So I go, you used to be able to swallow. Yeah. So repeating back things to her. So she just started, I said, so tell me how you grew up. And so as she's talking, and I would just say, that's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? And it was just going over her head before. And then, when she finished telling me the story, I go, wow, those are hard pills to swallow. Then she goes, why do you keep saying that? And I go, why do you think you can't swallow pills? Metaphorically, things that show up in our life will show up in our life in a way that we don't believe. So we worked on those things. It wasn't about swallowing the pill. It was about swallowing those things that she didn't want to deal with, or that were too bitter or too big to get down. So we worked on those. And when we worked on those, she could swallow pills like that. So just hearing what you're saying is everything. So creating that space for people just to talk it out. That's the secret sauce. That's my secret sauce.
Yeah, I love that. And it really does matter. And it is so metaphorical. And it's interesting. People think that there's this black and white in life, and how we do our business is different than how we do our life. When in reality, how we do one thing in life is really how we do everything.
Yes.
And so it's kind of fun when I'm working with business owners and they're doing logically and practically everything that I am recommending, that we've worked out together and we have that roadmap. And yet we're not seeing the results that we should be seeing. It's always something related to something personal or health or a clarity thing. And so that's why the work that you and I both do on mindset is just so important. And it's so overlooked. And also I find, even for myself, I'll get into this season where I feel like I'm just pushing and fighting and there's so much resistance. And that's typically because I need to stop and go within and work on something with my mindset. So like you said, it shows up in your life for specific reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you, what does inspiration mean to you?
So inspiration is that it factor. It's that thing. It is the creativity, the sparkle in your soul, or the ideas that pop up. It's the it's the cherry on the ice cream. It makes you want it. And it makes things look, or the sprinkles, the cherry and the sprinkle, it's the garnish, because otherwise it would may go unnoticed. So when you put those sprinkles on an ice cream cone and put the cherry on, then you go, wow, that's really great. You're inspired. Then comes the motivation, is different from inspiration, because you can be inspired and it just sits there. The inspiration doesn't go anywhere. So you actually do need both. And if you're not inspired, it's hard to be motivated. And if you're not motivated by what you're inspired by, motivation is the movement. It's the actionable part. The inspiration is what causes, or the motor for the motivation. So it's the thing that makes you want it. It's the thing that makes it all so sweet when you just go, wow, those sprinkles are really good. And this is what's making me notice it.
I love that you made the distinction between inspiration and motivation. You're the first person I've had on the show that's actually brought that up. And it's a really important point to make, because like you said, you can have a lot of inspiration and do nothing with it. And in fact, I think a lot of people I work with, they have repeated bouts of inspiration for the same thing, but they're allowing their fear or judgments from other people or societal standards block them from taking action or making that movement, which is the motivation piece, right?
Right. So you need them both in order to be successful.
Yeah.
Inspiration will keep you filled with those new ideas, and it keeps you fresh. It keeps your business fresh. It keeps your relationship fresh. It keeps your partnership fresh. It keeps you fresh. The motivation is what gets you to that goal. It's
Yeah.
what it's the movement. So move. Get in with the inspiration.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the motivation is the movement,
Yeah.
inspiration is the passion behind it. That's beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
So, as you have found your inspiration and clearly the motivation behind it, how did you begin to define success for yourself? And how have you defined that over the years?
Well, there's two parts of that, Coach Holly, and one is what I stopped doing and what I now do. I used to think that that success what other people told me and what I saw out there, and I was judging my beginning by other people's middles and their in or at their peak, and I was so mad or frustrated. What I didn't know is that they've been at those things for years. But what I saw was where they were at that moment, but they've been trying to get to that point for 10 years or more. So as I grew in my business and as I grew through age and maturity, I go, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do me. And it started with my daughter because I would sit with mommies and they would say, well, my kid's doing this and my kid is doing that, and I had no reference to that because my daughter is was she wasn't a neurotypical child. You know, her beginning was very different from term babies, and as she grew up, um, that experience was different. So I I stopped that. I go, okay, this is me. Jasmine, we're just going to get Jasmine to this point. She's walking. Yes. Success. Celebrating these small steps. Okay, what's the next goal? She's holding a spoon. Yes. I don't care how many months it is, you know, because other parents are saying in 4 months she's holding this, she's doing holding her bottle. I'm just like, okay, we did it in 7 months. Yes. So success. So that raising Jasmine, she's taught me so much about success. It's how I define it, the goals that I set for myself, for my family, and the values that I put on those things. Because let's face it, we're all different. So why put those pressures on yourself? So going back around to answer your question, how do I define success? By the goals that I set and when I reach them, and and I celebrate the small wins along the way. And I don't judge myself by anybody else's yardstick. It's mine.
Yeah, and I think if we could all do that and release what I like to call compare and despair, which by the way, I'm still recovering from this myself, and I'm sure that you're probably not perfect at it either because we have those moments and we're like, oh man. But the more we can live on our own terms and like you said, do you, not somebody
Mm-hmm.
else's standards, the happier you will be because ultimately happiness and success is a choice and we can be happy in the moment. And I also love that you are acknowledging those small steps and celebrating the small wins because so often I work with clients or I talk to my friends and family and they have these long-term goals. And they think that once they hit that long-term goal, then they'll be happy. So it's like when this happens, then this. And that's the
Yeah.
worst way to live. Like, and I keep every time I hear that statement, I will say, actually, you can be happy right now.
Right
It's your
now.
choice.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so important to enjoy the journey and not wait till that, new milestone or making that new summit.
So, Coach Holly, do you have children?
I do not. I have nephews, but
Okay.
kind
Well,
of similar.
well, you've seen little kids and you've been a kid, so you know.
Yeah,
And you know,
absolutely.
like when you do that one thing, like look at me, sing this song, and and the little kid gets the microphone and starts singing, they and you celebrate them at that moment. It's everything. Doesn't matter what they did 5 minutes before that or what you expect them to do 5 minutes after. It's in that moment, celebrate it.
Yeah.
So and so if you take that approach, then you can be happy every time. So my husband and I just started a challenge with his work, for weight loss this year. And so my promise to me is I'm going to drink so much water a day. So I don't have I leave the water out so I can see it. And it's in the small, it's a quart size. So a quart size glass bottle, and I put fruit in it so that I'll want to drink it. So I'm inspired to drink it. But I didn't put a gallon out. I put a quart out. So when I drink that quart, it's a small win because it's attainable. So what if I don't drink the whole gallon? I could drink a quart of water a day. So I made the goal small enough for me to achieve. So I just I drink water today. Yay. I drank a quart. So let's drink 2 quarts, and then I get to that. I can just fill it back up. So that's what I'm talking about, celebrating those small wins. So just chunk it down to make it attainable, and then celebrate it.
Yeah, and that's one of the mistakes that people make in the new year when they set resolutions or they set their goals is they're so big that they probably are attainable, but there's a roadmap or sub goals or milestones below that. And it's about laying that out and building that roadmap so that it's tangible, attainable
Mhm.
action, and then celebrating each tiny step that you take, right?
Celebrating, yes.
I love it. I love it. So, since you have gone through this success evolution, you've created this business, what are some of the challenges or obstacles that you've faced along your journey to success?
Oh my goodness, there's too many. And challenges, I mean, that's, it's somebody asked me about, how is that a challenge that I overcome. I'm just like, life is a challenge. I mean, you can look at it like it's a challenge that you are to overcome these things. This is part of life we're meant to learn and grow. Because if it was just easy, then what's the point of living this life? We'd be bored. So, um, there's just too many to name. I was number 9 of 13 children. How's that for a challenge? Trying to get your mom's attention and going, hey, hey, trying to get food or donut or get or whatever you need to get your needs met. I'm a cancer survivor. I was divorced. I spent 30 years in the military. I mean, there's all of those things. It's just life is a challenge. So there's not one thing, but what it's made me know is that and you said it before, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So if you can overcome one challenge, that means that whatever's before me, I can handle it. I can handle it. I don't know how, but I've made it to 50 something years and I didn't die. I didn't perish. So I'm pretty good at this overcoming obstacles thing, right? Aren't you?
Oh my goodness. So first of all, number 9 of 13 children. Holy
Yeah.
mackerel. That is a big challenge. Big challenge. How many children do you have? Just one. Okay.
I have one biological child and I have 3 bonus sons.
Love that. Love
But I
that.
had I had
Bonus
I
is
had
great.
only one out of this body.
Right, right.
I don't know how
Well,
my mother did that. That's her superpower.
I love that you're saying that life it's not just one. And I also like how you said that once you overcome one and you build up those challenges and obstacles that you overcome, you really need to kind of go within and remind yourself and have that trust and that confidence in yourself. And I think even though some of us will go through difficult seasons, when you're in the storm, it's so easy to forget, I think, because of our negativity bias in our brain, that we have overcome all those challenges and life is
Yes.
challenging. But that's what makes it
Yes.
fun. If you don't have the valleys, it makes the peaks kind of boring, right?
Yes. Yes. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Well, that's
So
already
it's not
super.
one thing. It's not one thing, it's everything. It's just
It's
like,
all of the things.
what are we doing today? And I think one of the things to remember is that challenges doesn't have to mean that you are sad and broken. You know, I used to run obstacle courses and I was excited about it. It, was that competitive spirit in me and go, how fast can I get through this? So it wasn't oh my God, I got to run this obstacle course. It was like, I get to run this obstacle course. Like I would sign up for that. So if
Well,
we think of life that way, then we can do it. We can go beyond stuck, go
yeah.
beyond our comfort zone, run the obstacle course.
Well, that's a good point
What's
because
going to
it's
happen?
all
Yeah.
about your perspective. So when we have challenges or difficult seasons or we're in a storm from life, we can choose to look at it like, oh, this is happening to me again and play victim. Or like you just said, we can say, this is happening for me. I'm going
Yes,
to
I
learn
get to do
something
this.
from this. I get to
Yeah.
overcome this challenge, build my confidence, learn something new, or grow into the next level of what is required of me to hit that 5-year goal, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So this is already super inspiring, but is there a particular story of inspiration that you're known for that you want to share with our listeners?
I tell people my cancer story as a breast cancer survivor, and unexpectedly, like that's not something that you plan to have. Like I don't go, oh, I plan to have breast cancer. Yeah, right now. So I always thought I took care of myself, and I felt like I was a servant leader, like I was doing sacred work. So I was mad at God or surprised. I wasn't mad, I was surprised at God. I was just like, really, God? I get cancer, for all the stuff that I do, you know. So I was just surprised and in that shock and awe. But what I realized through that journey is that I had a lot to let go of, that I wasn't perfect, that in my surrender, because that's what I had to do, because I was going through this period where I knew everything. It's like I know everything. I got the answer to that because I was teaching and coaching, and people were coming to me for the answer, and I was so full of myself. And the thing is that I hadn't let go um, of a deep hate, and I'm saying that word, hate, that I had for my mother. And it was resentment that had, well, it was actually hurt and sadness that turned into hate. And with the emotions, that sadness doesn't have movement, kind of like that inspiration. It doesn't have, it's the opposite of of inspiration. Neither one have movement. Sadness just sits there. So it needs something to propel it. And my motivation was hate. Okay, well, instead of sitting here feeling sad, I'm going to hate you and show you that I'm better, that I'm bigger, that I can do more than what you thought. You didn't give me this, so I'm going to hate you. So that was my motor. And what that motor did was tear my body down, because it's not inspiration that comes from God. God only loves. It's only going to send us love. So I had to create that hate out of other things. So it was, energetically, it was just tearing my body down. So getting to understand that, and there was a hypnosis session I had, and talking to the practitioner who said, what part wants to come forward? Hate came forward, and it was this voice that I didn't even recognize saying, I hate, and I'm going to get you. And she asked, is there another part of you? And Dee, and love was there, but it was so small. So what we did in that session was shrink hate and grow love. The problem was that the reason why I got there is because I didn't know love in the way that could move me forward in my career, in my life, and in my health, because I wasn't shown it in a way that I needed it. It wasn't modeled for me. So, what do we know? So, I knew I needed some movement. I didn't know how to love. So, I used the hate as a motor. So, we swap those. And I know it sounds simplistic, but it really, it's this process of about 3 years where I got to heal my body without chemo. I had several surgeries, but I didn't go through some of the traditional treatment that was um, recommended to me. I did something else and started loving myself instead of tearing my body down. What I didn't want to do was put more things that would tear me down. And so instead I was building up the love for not just for me, but for the vessel that, which is my body that contained the me, the soul. So, and I forgave. And then when I did that, I emerged a better, more loving person. And that's why I named my business Heart Centered Institute, because everything comes from the heart. That love is entangled in everything. And that's the part of us that's connected with source. So I know that's probably the long answer, but that is my inspirational story because that's how I teach. And even my scarf, like I wear hearts all the time.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
yeah. So
That's a
yeah,
great
everything is heart
story.
centered. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's so true. Oftentimes when we have these repeated patterns that show up, or we're really stuck and everything that we take action on doesn't give us the new outcome we're expecting, right? We're living in insanity at that point because we're not breaking the pattern. And oftentimes we can take action that doesn't give us the results we should be getting. And that's where it is really great to do that inner work, like you're describing.
Mhm.
And I've done parts work, and it is a
Yeah.
slow process. And it's not like you wake up overnight. I mean, you can sometimes have a pretty powerful epiphany, but it doesn't change the inner workings inside of you overnight. It takes time, and you kind of really have to continually work with those inner pieces to
Yeah.
rebalance and bring to the
Yes.
surface the good parts and up level
Yeah.
the belief and the identity inside of you, which can be tedious, but it's so powerful because it
So
affects every
powerful.
part of your life.
What it was an awakening for me that I didn't realize how powerful hate is. And that I was using it like a badge. Like I was like, come on, hate, let's go. We got to go do some things. We got to go show somebody. And I didn't realize that I could do that same thing with love. That would, and it wouldn't hurt me, would actually build me up and help me build other people up. And I didn't feel like a fraud anymore because while I had that part of me that was the shadow part of me, the hate part, I was hiding that, lying about it. So and hiding it.
Yeah.
Now there is no hiding. So there's that energy that I was using to keep that pushed down is not, I don't need that. That energy is, I'm using that to drink more water and go for that walk.
Well, and that's so powerful because hate is strong. And while we're
Yeah.
recording this, like this past year, 2020, and now we're in 2021, um, uh, my fear and worry is that there's so much fear and hate
Yeah.
and that's so dangerous, right? And even recently, personally, I just moved across the country, and I had a very stressful situation where it really brought up a lot of anger. Like, it took 8 weeks for my things to arrive. There's over 14,000 in damages and stolen items, and it was very
Mm,
violating. But what's
mm.
interesting is I even considered, this is going to sound crazy, and I can't believe I'm admitting to this on the
Not to
show.
me.
I considered buying, and I did buy a voodoo doll, and I was considering using it. But every time I brought yeah, you're laughing. Every time I brought myself to use it, it was like love was showing up, even though I was really angry.
Thank God for love. Yes.
And I was just like, well, wait a second. I think that they
Yeah.
were probably trying their best. And it's kind of sad that they're this bad in their business. And so it's really interesting. Like, love kept, even though I was really angry, I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do this. Like, it's not right. And so it's really important for love to have that power in your life. And it's so much more powerful than hate. And so the way that I'm, pivoting there is like, yes, I still need to take action and hold them
Yeah,
accountable, but there's a way to do that that's not going to hurt me or change who I
yeah,
am. And so, it's just doing those practical steps, but not necessarily coming from that place of hatred or coming from the victim mode or
yeah,
letting it tear you up. It's like, okay, let's
yeah,
go to a kickboxing class, let that anger out
yeah,
and take
yeah,
practical action, right? So
yeah,
for people listening, there's a lot of storms. I talk to people every day, and it's been a really rough couple, like year and a
yeah,
half. And so my challenge to you, and I'm sure Dee would agree, is choose love. Whatever small step that is today, like put yourself in
yeah,
that person's shoes. You have no idea the person that cut you off in traffic. Maybe they just lost somebody. Maybe they have like some really important thing they're getting to. Their child is sick. Just give them the benefit of the doubt, because
yeah,
if we don't take that action, I don't want to see where we are a year from now.
yeah. So Holly, that's funny because I and thank you for admitting that, because you know what? I thought about things like that too. What we're trying to do is feel better. We're trying to do something to make ourselves feel better. So I'm not mad at you for doing that, or I don't think it's crazy, because I know why you were doing it. So that you can get your power back. Because when we lose power, we start to, how can I get some of my power back? That's why bullies are bullies. They're losing power somewhere. So they go to somebody who is who they can overpower to get their power back. So having a voodoo doll, you know, is like, you're trying to take your power back. So you're just trying to feel better. So I get it. I get it. But you know that it wasn't going to work in the long run. Because in the long run, you get what you give. You
Yeah.
get what you give.
Well, and that's why I couldn't do it. Well, for
Yeah.
one, actually, when I went to actually do it, all I could experience was love and understanding. And I was like, what is up
Yeah.
with this? So for me, I think it
Yeah.
was more effective writing a letter, like an angry letter about everything, and then burning it and just like letting it go. But I just share it
Yeah.
because none of us are perfect. We all have these moments
Oh,
where,
girl, I have stories. Yes.
yeah, and so I mean that's pretty vulnerable to share, and people are probably like, okay, great. There's this coach that I might work with, and she got a voodoo doll and almost used it,
No,
but
girl,
you
it's
can also
fine.
use it for good. So now I'm just gonna use it for good things. Anyways, let's
Okay, can I say one more thing about
yeah,
that? Is how I work with my clients that have anger. I go, because what you want to do is, and this is how I handle it, and how I was taught to handle it, and it's pretty effective, is run that horse uphill. Let them get it out. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? I want to get a voodoo doll. Okay, all right, where are you gonna stick it first? Don't go buy a voodoo doll, but just think about it. It's like, where are you gonna stick it? I'm gonna punch it right in the throat. Okay, go ahead, think in your head, do it in the throat. Okay, so how does that make you feel? So they go, so you want to get to the point where they feel relieved. Then okay, right. Now that we can't really do that, but you thought how it went out. Do you feel relief? Because what you want is the feeling of relief. And now when you get to that point, now you can move on to something that you can actually do. You go, okay, so we can't go and beat them up. Okay, we already saw how that would end. Okay, so if you beat them up, would somebody call the police? Yeah, they'll probably call the police. What would you do if you went to jail? Well, that would ruin my life. Okay, so we probably don't want to go with guns or blazing to beat somebody up, but it really felt good in your head, right? All right, so now what are we going to do that's really workable, that's constructive? Then we get to that compassion that you were talking about. Like you were like, they could have been cutting people off in traffic because of this reason or that reason. Have you ever had a day like that? Yes, I've had a day like that before. Can you step into those shoes and say, or can you just not sweat the small stuff? I know your thing wasn't small, because you felt violated. I totally get that. So I would want a voodoo doll too, because I would want that.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I share it is because it is an extreme example. And the
It's
fact was
good. It's good. I
that,
love
well,
it.
I took action on that. Like I never
Yeah.
actually used it.
Yeah.
So if you're on the ledge right now, that's normal. We have these moments. Just
Yeah.
bring it back and come back to love.
Yeah.
So since you identified as a heart-centered leader, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you what heart-centered leadership means to you.
The leadership that is, I'm a servant leader. So that's what it is. It means that I lead from by example. There's nothing that I can't talk about. Like I'm open. I used to have a vault of shame that I kept locked away, things that I didn't want people to know about me, things that I couldn't talk about. But now I laugh about those things, just like we're laughing right now. It's just like that's life. And when you can laugh about them and share your whole heart, and people seeing you do that, that's leadership. Because then they say it's safe. Dee did that. She showed us how to step forward and to be authentic and lead from your heart center. Because again, I said this is the part of you that's connected to source. It's connected to your higher self, to the energies um, that help you, the seen and unseen energies that are here to help us. It's all from the heart.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And we need certainly more heart-centered leaders out there. And it's really great when I interview heart-centered leaders because a lot of the practices that they use is, checking in with their heart space.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to get into our head and into the thinking space, which doesn't always lead to the best action for working with others, right?
And there's been studies that say where the answer really comes from or where it happens first. And some studies say that it happens in the heart first, and some people say that it happens simultaneously. Like your heart always knows. People say your gut knows, but your heart knows. And there's a practice, that I do, when I just put my hands right there, right here, and I go, what is it that I need? What should I do? It's not outside of me, it's inside of me. Um, the answer is always there before I get to the logic and to the logical headspace. The heart always knows first.
Yeah. And I think if we had more people doing that, we'd probably be in a much better place in the world today. So just stop and use that
Yes,
practice, check in with your
yes.
heart and ask what it needs instead of your head. So, another question I love to ask heart centered leaders is, what age were you when you started really believing in yourself?
That's a hard one, Coach Holly, because it's ongoing. It's ongoing because each challenge that I face, I doubt myself. So each thing that I come upon, it is like, can I do this? Do I have the ability? And I don't stop doubting myself until I get through that challenge. And then there's another one and another one. So there's always a doubt because that's part of life. So I don't teach people to not feel fear. I teach people to feel the fear and do it anyway because there's learning on the other side of it. So that's the answer, is just like I'm a work in progress like everyone else. I just know that all is well. Even when I'm scared, all is well. Even
Yeah.
when I fail, all is well. But when I kick ass, I celebrate.
Well, and I love how you admit, and I imagine this is part of being that heart centered leader, that every time you face a challenge, there's some self doubt because
Yes.
even the best of us, trust me, the last 8 weeks with the the move is just tip of the iceberg. It has been a storm. Like, and it's interesting. I've been through a divorce, I've been through a massive concussion, and this is like the third most challenging time of my entire life. I'm not exaggerating. And so, yeah, of course, we're human. We have
Yeah.
these moments where our mind goes into old patterns. We start going down to the negative loop, those old patterns. But as we have gone through more obstacles, we catch ourselves. We're like, well, wait a second. I've done this before. This is not
Exactly.
me. This is me having some self-doubt because I'm going
Yeah.
through this. I know I'll
Yeah.
get through it. And so that's the difference, I think, is your belief elevates with each challenge and obstacle. But
Yes.
yes, when you're in the storm, of course you're having self-doubt. You
Yeah.
wouldn't be
You're like,
human otherwise.
the storm is here. Take cover.
Exactly,
then
exactly.
then that part of you goes, one day you got to get out. The storm is still there, but on the other side, that's where the sun is. So and to get to the sun, you got to get moving through this stormy part. And
Yeah.
you go,
Well,
but I
and
don't want to go in the storm. It hurts, and then so I'm scared. But you just do it.
yeah, well, that's the only thing that gets you through fear and through
Mhm.
obstacles is straight through it. And sadness and grief is there's no avoiding it. You have to go straight through
Have to
it.
go.
And you have
Yes.
to do it yourself. It's not like somebody else can do it for you, and
Oh man,
that's hard.
if I can delegate it to my husband, I would.
Amen. Amen. So, one of the other questions I wanted to ask you is how do you show belief in others, whether they're your clients, your children, your family? How do you show that belief?
In them,
Yes.
I let them do them. Like do you. Goodness. So I've had the best teacher, I've had the best teacher. Her name is Jasmine. She's 30 years old and she's on the autism spectrum. And she's been teaching me all of her life to accept because the thing that I thought the person who I thought she was going to be, the daughter I thought I was going to have, God was like, I know this is what you think is going to happen, but here's what you get. And, I sometimes I would look down and I just see a pink sock with polka dots and a black sock. And I just go, she's got socks on. Or her jacket inside out. And I go, she got the jacket on by herself. And so my husband will, and will point and we'll just giggle about it, but then we'll feel a sense of pride because I didn't have to do it for her. And that's what I've learned for my clients that I coach is that I have to tell them I can't do this for you. I'm going to help you and support you. I'm going to cheer for you. I'm going to give you some tools or teach you this. And now when I get texts from people, Coach D, do you have time? Because this is going on in my life. And I go, you don't. I said, you want to, you can pay me if you want to, but you already have the tools. What did you go to your tools?
Yeah.
What is your heart saying? Take a moment. Did you meditate on it? What are you feeling? And then the next day they'll text back and say, thank you. You just saved me such and such many dollars. They go, it's not for us to be together long term. It is for us to be here for the season for you to learn what you need to learn, and I'll support you and say you can do this. So that is what I learned from my daughter is that she helped me teach her as far as I could teach her, and then the rest was up to her.
Yeah, well, and that's really powerful. I feel like we live in a world where there's so much judgment. And I love how your answer to this was really accepting people and empowering people for who they are
Yeah,
and just having belief in them because they have the tools. You know that they can get this done, reminding them that they need to have that faith and empowerment within themselves.
yeah,
It is so easy for us to not allow people to do themselves and be successful on their own terms and live their own life because they see the world in a different way than us, or they define success in a very different way than we do. And that's great. That's what makes the world and our life so rich is these differences. The problem is when we judge people for that and we try to
yeah,
bring them down, or maybe even we're jealous or we're scared by how excited they are, how passionate and driven they are. And so we want to bring them down with us. And so I think that's a really beautiful response. And we need more people in the world that are having expectancy and excitement and acceptance of each other versus expectations
Yes.
and judgment.
Acceptance is part of the compassion formula that I use when clients are in hypnosis. Um, the first part is understanding, and this is usually to get people out of the victim mode, or to because usually they're going in because somebody did something to them. So understanding that that person was doing the best they can with the skills and the resources they had at that time. Even if you were 3, the person who was raising you, that's where they were at that time. And then accepting that it's never going to be how you want it to be because you can't go back and change it. So if you keep wishing for it, then you just bring in yourself pain because it can't be any different than it was. That's how it was. So accepting it for what it is. You don't have to like it, but accepting it can bring you peace. And then that compassion, stepping into the knowledge of, hey, I've done some stuff that I'm not so proud of. Because at that time, when I was 20, that was the best I could do with the skills and the resources I had. And when, at 30, when I had 3 little ones running around and had a job, that was the best I can do, was scream at them because that's all I knew. So having compassion for someone. And then comes forgiveness, because you cannot forgive unless you understand, accept, and have compassion. And then if you can forgive, you can go into that heart space, that love. And then the next thing after that is peace, which is one of the highest vibrations. But in order to get there, you have to go through those other things.
That is beautiful. I hope people really listen to that. And if maybe not, rewind and listen to that again until you get it,
Yeah,
because that is the key. And we could all use some inner peace these days. That is for sure.
absolutely. Yes.
So, I also wanted to ask you if you could share one story or one specific example of how you lead from the heart.
I think I've been doing it all my life, with, like I said, being number 9 of 13 children, just having to learn and gather my superpowers. And leading from the heart, I think, it comes from all of those things, from that compassion formula that I just talked to you about. When my clients step in my door or when I open up the computer, I already see them as perfect, whole, and complete. They may feel like they're broken or something's missing, or they're stuck. They're already perfect, whole, and complete. My job is to get them to see they're perfect, whole, and complete. That's how I lead. So I always say, one problem, one solution. The problem is separation from love. The solution is return to love. And that's how I lead. My whole practice is to get them back to that heart center, to knowing that being separate from love is just an illusion. It's a mindset. That means that it's not a tangible thing. So that means you can change it. So my whole premise of coaching and how I lead is, we're already perfect, whole, and complete. We're already in that love. Let's return to it.
Yeah, that is so true and so beautiful. And I think if people are in a place right now where they are struggling or they're being judgmental, especially towards themselves, that's a great reminder. Because I feel the same way. I'll have, even when I'm not coaching a client, I'll be with a friend and they'll say, "Oh, I'm getting so old," or, "Oh, I have this problem." And I find myself like correcting them. I'm like, "Well, wait a second. You're not old. Like, that's the perception." And like, that's kind of, we don't want to say that because then you're putting that out there. Or they put themselves down. I'm like, "Well, wait a second. Like, I see you as this, right?" So that perfect, whole, and complete, kind of reminding them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So many people aren't aware that they are saying these things until you
Yeah.
stop and you call it out. And so
Yeah.
that's the other thing is, if you have that capability, you are a heart-centered leader. You see that with your friends. Maybe you're not even doing it as a business, but that's just who you are as a person. We need so much more of that. So find a gentle way to nudge or share that with someone so that they can start being more self-aware and shifting back to love and acceptance of themselves and then others.
Well, one of the things I do is I don't coach unless I'm asked. So what that does is allow people to be who they are and accept them who they are. Now, I don't have to have them in my life if it's not in alignment with my goals and who I want around me, but I don't judge them. I just go, not my kind of person, not my kind of group, not my kind of thing. So if people are asking me of my opinion, I have a million of them. So I've learned to turn off work and just accept. So when, like, my husband used to say, that guy has purple hair. And I go, he's expressing himself. You and my husband is so matchy. He he wears scrubs. He's a essential healthcare worker. He wears scrubs, but he wears whatever color sneakers he has, and he has like, I don't know how many pairs of sneakers. If they're orange, bright orange, he'll have some bright orange earrings on and a bright orange rope bracelet or something on. And I go, wow, that's some really bright orange. And he says, I'm expressing myself, remember?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah,
definitely important to ask
yeah,
permission when
yeah,
coaching and all. So definitely great reminder for folks that are listening that are in that
yeah.
space.
Just accept. I mean, like,
Yeah.
or don't you express yourself? Look, I have bright red glasses. I tried to get my daughter to get some red glasses. She was like, no way. But this is how I express myself,
Yeah.
so this is part, you have bangs. That's how you express yourself, because it's, how we feel. It's our outer thing. And so I'm going to share with our listeners today, Holly. I go, are we doing video? Are we doing video, or is this recorded? Because I need to know if I need to put makeup on. Because otherwise I would just be in the house, like, you know, maybe I would comb my hair, maybe. But I definitely wouldn't wear makeup. So this makeup is for y'all.
I'm the same way. If I have an interview, I'm like, oh, I've got like literally I put in the schedule hair and makeup and glasses. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely how we express
yeah,
ourselves in different
yeah.
modalities is
Mhm,
different and very unique. So
yeah.
acceptance is key.
Except, just
Yeah,
as long as you're not hurting people and
exactly.
you're not being hurt by what someone else is doing. That's the big political debate that's going on. Not debate, but our political climate right now is just, just teaching my daughter, they have a right to believe what they believe, until it hurts someone.
Well, and it would be great because it's so polarized if people could just accept differences of opinion and
Yeah,
different party beliefs and have
yeah,
discussions. They don't have to agree, but
yeah,
accepting differences would go a long way right
yeah.
now.
You don't bring out the guns in the fight.
Yeah,
It's like the conversation. It's the conversation and the acceptance and understanding. Like, I can understand how that would be important to you.
right.
Just saying that right there, I can understand how that's important to you.
Yeah, because if you're not even able to do that, you're not
Yeah.
hearing anybody, and there's
Yes.
no point in having a discussion. So you might as well say, let's just not talk about that.
Yeah. That's heart-centered leadership right there. That.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, this has been really fun. So we're actually going to dive into the lightning round questions.
Lightning round, let's go.
So, Dee, what's your favorite book?
Do I just get to pick one? Okay,
I prefer
my
one,
favorite
but
book, my favorite book is The Four Agreements.
perfect. I love that one too.
Mhm.
What networking or community group do you love most?
My own, it's called Mindship Membership, and we have a online community called Success Builders. I spend all my time there. That's why it's my favorite.
Love it. And for people that have their own group, if they don't answer their own group, I always am like, interesting. So great.
My own group.
Exactly. What's the best one piece of advice you would share with others today?
Work on your mindset. Mindset is everything.
Great. And if you could share one message with the world, what would that be?
Work on your mindset. Mindset.
Okay, well, just to make that tangible for people that they're new to mindset, what is one
Okay.
small step, like a very tangible step they can take on mindset?
Learn mindfulness, which means being aware of the present moment, not judging it, just accepting what is in that moment. Doing that can take you out of the future and away from the past. And you can find a lot of joy and peace in that moment by just observing it.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. And what's the legacy you wish to leave behind?
I want people to remember me as a servant leader, as a heart-centered leader. The work that I did or that I do now has transformed people's lives. You know, it's not just, hey, I knew Dee. It is, I worked with Dee and what she gave me transformed me.
Beautiful. So Dee has been super generous. She has a free workshop she's offering to our listeners. It's called Kick Fear in the Face. And I don't know about you, but that sounds right. That sounds powerful. I'm like, yeah, kick fear in the face. So if you're feeling stress, anxiety, or fear, you can check that out at kickfear.deewoolridge.com. I will also have that in the show notes in case you don't know how you want to spell that. And I will have all of the social media links and Dee's website. Anything you'd like to add to that, Dee?
Kick fear in the face. That's a funny name, I know. Fear is personal. And you have to stare it down and take your power back. So, and that's why it's like kick fear in the face, not kick its butt. You want to stare it down and say, I got you. I see you. I know why you're there. This is how we're going to do this. So it's like a powerful movement to move fear out of your way. So
Fabulous.
Kick fear in the face.
I love it. And as I said it, I was like, yeah, I like that. I'm like, let's kick fear in the face. All right. So with that, I hope you guys take her up on that workshop. Check that out. It's a great way to kick off this year. This show will be released in February, but still at this point, you're still charging towards those goals and all those motivations for the year. So check that out. Thank you so much, Dee. It was such a pleasure.
Thanks, Coach Holly.
Thank you. And to our listeners, tune in to next week. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. What is one thing you can do in this moment that will inspire someone? Without action, nothing changes. Be the change you wish to see in the world. If this show truly inspired you, we ask that you share it through your network. Help us spread the light and inspiration in the world. I look forward to seeing you here next week.